Hello, my fellow geeks. This is the Indian AvGeek, episode number 67, and my name is Vishal Mehra. This is a big weekend, comes once in a year. For some of us pro wrestling diehards, WrestleMania weekend is always a big one. So I wish all the fellow fans a fun, entertaining time. Anyways, in the world of airline loyalty, Etihad Guest has always occupied an interesting corner. Born in the shadow of one of aviation's, let's say, most audacious experiments, it survived that grand equity alliance era and then that painful reset and emerged on the other side leaner, sharper, and arguably more interesting than ever. My guest this Sunday built his career at the intersection of guest experience and commercial value. Two things that airlines often treat as opposites but rarely should. As managing director of Etihad Guest and director of guest value and loyalty at Etihad Airways, Mark Potter is the person answering a deceptively simple question every single day. What does loyalty actually mean, and what is it worth? Mark, so pleased to welcome you to the Indian AvGeek.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm sorry it's taken so long for us to get together.
No worries at all. It's all good. How did you and aviation happen, Mark?
I must admit, aviation wasn't really in my plan when I was studying back in Australia. So I think it's now 2010, so it'll be 16 years ago. I was fortunate enough to start a little internship at Virgin Blue at the time. I was in my final semester of studies at university and got a little bit of a tease or a taste, I should say, of the aviation world. And I think it got the aviation fuel got in my veins after that. But spent a little bit of time in their corporate comms team, actually, and then a little bit of time in network planning, and then found myself when I finished university doing some work in revenue management, which is probably the best learning space of an airline, and the best taste of that. So not in my plan, but love traveling, and eventually now have become an av geek like yourself, I suspect, and love looking up into the skies and seeing aircraft fly over me. So yeah, a nice flow.
Well, aren't you the perfect guest for the podcast then?
Exactly.
Tell us how Etihad Guest is doing in India and, of course, across all your markets.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an amazing. Well, 2025 was an amazing year. I think we were in Mumbai 2 weeks ago and talking about India, but from a global perspective, the program added about 2.6 million new members last year alone, and that was across the majority of our key markets, which is obviously a very nice indicator of the program's performance and the desire for people to get involved. So that's good. And I think through with the benefit of Etihad's growth narrative in 2025, we're also kind of riding a little bit on the coattails of that, right? With new network and 30 plus new destinations, new aircraft, new product. It's all singing from a beautiful hymn sheet. In India, we're very proud of the fact that India has 11 gateways for us as Etihad, 185 flights a week, I think it is, something like that. And the program is the fastest growing country. The country India is our fastest growing market from a program perspective. So naturally, that led us to invest a bit of time and focus into what we want to be in that market. But the program, we've gone through some evolution as well. In 2024, we refreshed the program. We went and put in a new tier product, which I'm sure we'll talk about again shortly, as well as revised some of the redemption pricing, reduced the redemption pricing at a time when most programs were going the opposite way, and kind of not reinvented ourselves, but gave ourselves a little bit of a new meaning in terms of how we wanted to treat our most loyal customers and members. So I think we're now starting to reap the benefits of that with our engagement metrics and the growth of the program. So really proud of the team and proud of what we've done, but plenty of great stuff still to go.
Awesome. How many Etihad Guest members do you have in India now, and how many do you have globally?
So we have about 13.5 million members globally. and India, without giving you the number, is our second largest base. So the UAE is our biggest base, but very closely followed by India. And as I said, the velocity of growth in India, I would be open to say I think India will probably be our biggest base by the end of the year. So we're really excited about what that means.
That's a big one. Going back to the event you had in Mumbai a couple of months back, you enabled two-way currency transfers with Flipkart. A move traditional airline loyalty managers once viewed as leakage.
Right.
Why is Etihad betting that a more porous, open ecosystem provides a better ROI than the traditional high breakage, closed loop model?
Yeah, so let's just quickly rehash a little bit of what we announced, because I think it's kind of a nicer story collectively. So, in the UAE, we've got a fantastic portfolio of retail partners, hotel partners, credit card or payment card products, and we've also got quick service delivery and online retail. So basically, it was a bit like we know that is a tried and tested solution, and it would make sense for us to go into a market like India and replicate that, right? So we put a lot of energy and focus into what would that kind of ecosystem look like in India and what partners make sense for us. And we know roughly with our partners that where people are spending, where the majority of their everyday spend is going. And obviously relationships like Swiggy and Flipkart are a natural fit in terms of us trying to integrate the program into everyday lives. So the partner kind of discussions was somewhat easy in terms of who we wanted to work with and what brands correlated it back to us. There was also the discussion around Shopper Stop, which is also added into the portfolio of that announcement. And that obviously also gives us a little bit of a legacy brand in India, but a great homegrown brand that also gives us that physical brick and mortar proposition. The co-brand with Bobcard was also launched. It actually launched a couple of weeks earlier, but we announced it in Mumbai. And we've seen really impressive desire and appetite to get involved in that product, actually. And so that kind of allowed us to, in theory, kind of bring a beautiful circle around those partners. And the postcard hotels one is a nice addition to our hotel portfolio in that market, given very unique niche product in India and also in other markets. So really excited about what that was. To answer your question succinctly, I suppose, Flipkart obviously has a very strong currency in Supercoin and a lot of users. So there was elements around that relationship that meant that we gained relevance very quickly as a program. And the two-way currency transfer, I'm the exact same as you. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, taboo subject. I wouldn't have let my currency go out the door to other programs. But as we've learned through those kind of relationships we had here in the UAE, we have a fuel partner, we have a retail partner where we allow the same. We actually recently launched a telco partner as well. We are noticing that the ability for the currency to be used more frequently, potentially in those kind of more micro type transactions, is driving better engagement. And so, in that market with Flipkart, we know that a transaction, when a redemption happens, that we see an additional engagement or an accrual transaction happen quite quickly afterwards. It was about kind of growing that ability for people to do it. And obviously Flipkart is a great option. So we have the reward shop there. You can use your miles to buy e-commerce products or products on a reward shop, but also we wanted to kind of allow the currency to also be kind of utilized in another ecosystem. So, we are betting on the fact that the ability for it to be transferred into Flipkart and used in that ecosystem, into Supercoin, will inherently drive them back into our ecosystem and convert and hopefully become more loyal, frequent flyers with Etihad as well.
You're adding 6 new members every minute in India, but scale often dilutes exclusivity, right? As you move from episodic travel to daily habits, that could be via Swiggy or Shopper Stop. How are you ensuring the Etihad brand remains premium when it's being earned on even grocery delivery, right? Is that a tricky slope?
No, I think of course there is, we assessed whether the brands correlate back with us and their aspiration and what we want to be. Etihad built ourselves on ambition. We want to be the airline that everybody wants to fly. Luxury is obviously an incredible part of our brand and our product and our experience, but we also want to make sure that, we are available to anybody who wants to take a journey with us. So I think, we are working with great brands. There is elements around what we still retaining that kind of luxury element or the Etihad kind of brand ethos in the way that we engage, the way that we communicate with our base, the way that we want to kind of still build relationships like postcard hotels is still an option for the affluent base or the base that can kind of want want to have that experience. So we don't see any concerns there. It's all about embedding our currency into people's everyday lives, and then ultimately having that aspirational redemption. I would hope yourself and your listening kind of group will, be fans of our premium product, or our product. We have, beautiful first class and business class products in the residence, which still we know that members aspire to redeem into, and it's available there. So us being able to make people achieve that or aspire to achieve that faster through the everyday ecosystem allows that to become a reality, and I don't think impacts the brand too much.
My earliest redemptions on Jet Privilege was on Etihad Business. So I do have great memories of the product.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where did you go? Can I ask? Where was your
Yeah.
trip to?
So I remember the same trip. I did Delhi, London on Virgin, and I did London, Delhi on Etihad.
Amazing.
London, Abu Dhabi, Delhi. So
Okay.
so yeah, good
When was
time.
that? That would have been 20,
This
I
this
guess the
this would have been I mean, when Jet was part of the Etihad um, partners. This
yeah.
probably was, I think, 10, 12 years back, maybe 10 years or so back, 10 years back. And I remember I was on the 787, and it had the business studio product. So it was
Mm-hmm.
a good product, was a good hard product. I
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah. Still is a good product actually, but we've there's some exciting with the 321 LRs in market now. That's another really exciting product. The 787s have got a refresh, so we need to get you back on board. Get you
Yeah,
back to Abu Dhabi.
absolutely. Let's come back to the Indian market. Etihad flies to 11 Indian ports, many of which are non-metros. Loyalty programs are usually built, let's say, for the urban elite. How are you adapting the guest experience for the traveler, let's say in Kozhikode or Ahmedabad, where the definition of premium and loyalty might differ significantly from a traveler in Mumbai or Abu Dhabi for that matter?
Obviously, given that we have significant frequency into all of those markets, it makes us relevant for whether you're a metro or a non-metro. And I think obviously India, given the population size, non-metro metro is probably completely different compared to other countries, right? Those that live in Ahmedabad, as an example, that's a significant population that we'd love to get involved in or have as part of the program. I think our ability with the recent announcement of kind of these everyday ecosystem partners has meant that it allows us to kind of integrate a little bit into some of those non-metro locations as you referenced, because Flipkart is a national product, Swiggy as well. Shopper Stop has 500 locations, I think, or something like that across or 500 brands across India. So there is definitely desire there to make sure that irrespective whether you live in Mumbai or Delhi or some of the non-metros, that we have a relevant proposition. Those people that live there still want to fly internationally, I believe, and they still want to fly on a great product like us. And so us kind of bringing that currency and the ability to kind of gain a larger balance in their profiles, I don't think is any different to someone who lives in a metro. So that's kind of our strategy, I suppose. We want to just gain relevance irrespective of location. And I kind of stress, I suppose, that this is the beginning of a journey, right? We're fully aware that 6 months ago we were an airline loyalty program with a host airline and a couple of airline partners that flew out of India that gave a little bit of relevance, but overnight we added 5 critical partners that give us increased significant relevance. And so we have that is part of the strategy. The other piece is our reward shop. So the redemption option, aside from the transfer that you referenced earlier with Flipkart or Supercoin, we actually made a conscious effort a couple of years ago to drive a lot of the localization in terms of that reward shop. And so we have the ability for people to use their miles for tangible products like technology or gift cards or apparel or whatever it may be, which means that we're also kind of letting the currency be utilized in some of those markets where maybe we don't have as much relevance. And so I think it's we're gaining some growth there in the non-metros, and these partners and our reward shop product is available, but also flying to 11 destinations means that we're relevant as well beyond that from flying.
Yeah. On the consumer behavior, Mark, do you see any sort of consumer behavior difference, a small town traveler as compared to a Mumbai traveler or a Delhi traveler or a New York traveler based on some of the insights you might have gathered? Is there something there?
I think there's the honest answer is it's probably a little bit too soon because we've kind of traditionally only had the airline proposition and a little bit of the reward shop. We are, still gaining a little bit of insight into how the broader ecosystem is going to support us understanding that. We had the co-brand with a previous bank, as you're aware, and we saw a really nice kind of engagement model there. We've obviously shifted that to a new partner now, and we're excited to see what that looks like. But it's probably a little bit too soon. So I would say, 6 months time when we've got these partners embedded and we see the frequency of engagement we expect, we'll be able to kind of understand a little bit more as to the variances there. We do know that from an Abu Dhabi point of view with the co-brands and the ecosystem we've got here, that there is certainly a different kind of member versus other markets because of that relevance and that mass of partners that we have. So we're kind of betting on the fact that we'll see similar sort of growth and engagement in India.
Yeah, Abu Dhabi, of course, would be a different beast. That's your home market. You've shifted your primary financial partnership from SBI card to Bob card in India. This is a move from a mass market giant to a more targeted player. Let's say that. What was the driver behind this?
Yeah, I think, SBI, I think everyone is aware, or your listeners would be as well, a great bank, huge bank, very mass market bank. And so, they were a great partner and we enjoyed our time with them. But as we kind of assessed the market a little bit more, we realized there's probably an opportunity for us to revitalize the CPP a little bit and go with a partner that was sharing some of the similar sort of goals and objectives that we had. So, Bob Card is has good saturation in India, also has an international presence, and so it meant that there was a few more synergies in terms of what we wanted to achieve. So working with Ravinder and the team over there, we built what we believe to be a really great card proposition and product, and so we're excited to see how that goes. But it was just it came to a time when we realized that potentially there was an opportunity to revitalize, and we spoke to a few other partners, and Bob was the right one for us.
All right. Some of your neighborhood friends, Emirates, Qatar, even Turkish, they've all been vocal about asking for more bilateral rights for the Indian market. Your leadership was also vocal at Wings India about bilateral rights being fully utilized. If you can't add more seats to India, does the burden of growth shift entirely to the loyalty program? And we all know why the Indian government has been hesitating so far. But what I wanted to ask you was, are you essentially tasked with increasing the yield per member rather than the number of passengers now?
I think, yeah. I mean, obviously there's been some discussions around the bilateral rights, and I think we can, it's pretty well documented that we would love to have, they would love to have more seats going between the two countries, and of course welcome more people into Abu Dhabi and allow more people to go into India. So that is certainly there. Our perspective is that obviously we'd love to get more people onto our flights and potentially higher yielding people and all that sort of stuff. That is evident, right? That's kind of the business model. The other part of the discussion is, we also have a very strong network of other airline partners that are flying east and west from India as well, right? So there's opportunity for us to continue to engage with the base in India, add value back to our partners in the ecosystem that we're creating there, which means that, of course, Etihad is a primary focus for us and getting them on board, and the limitations can potentially inhibit that. But broader than that, we also see value in having a very strong, engaged database in India that gets value out of us beyond with our partner network. So, long-winded way of saying we would love more seats. The short end, but the other side of the coin is, with what we've got, we'd love to, get more members on board our flights and hopefully traveling on our network. But we also have that ecosystem that means that the proposition is very strong with our partner airlines and domestic. So we've still got plenty of opportunity for us to add value.
You now have a world-class transit experience at your hub airport. However, Air India and of course Indigo, they are pushing non-stop travel. They want to expand. How is Etihad Guest being used to incentivize the Indian traveler to choose a, let's say, a 2 to 3 hour layover in Abu Dhabi over a direct 9 hour flight or a 12-hour flight or a 16-hour flight?
Yeah, I mean, I think hopefully you've transited through Abu Dhabi. If not, as we talked about before, we'd love to get you through the new terminal. It is absolutely first class, and I think we're very fortunate that Abu Dhabi has created that for us as Etihad. It's certainly been an important part of our growth narrative, and I think elements of that, kind of answer your question a little bit. That great product and the transit facility we've got there, and the lounges and the experiences is somewhat making it a little bit of a destination itself. So I think that's helping us on the story that we're trying to create. One piece of the puzzle is that we've arguably got one of the best stopover programs in the world, and so the ability to kind of spend some time in Abu Dhabi is certainly something that we've seen the Indian consumer and consumers across the world, enjoy when they travel with Etihad. The 2 night stay and the ability to extend is certainly very, very appealing to certain parts of the base. The program plays a role in that stopover program. If you kind of allow me to embellish a little bit, in terms of allowing our currency to also be used in some of those kind of assets in Abu Dhabi. As we talked about, we're super proud of our Abu Dhabi kind of proposition. And so using miles for, theme parks in Abu Dhabi, using miles to buy hotels when you come here, if you choose to extend, using miles to transact in malls and so forth, means that we're kind of adding additional value to those who choose to stop. Of course, some people may want to go all the way through. That's okay, but we certainly think the program is further incentivizing and adding value to those who choose to stay here. The other piece of the puzzle is, as we grow our base and continue to grow the base in India, particularly those that are, our silver, gold, and platinum members, the lounge proposition that we have here is also somewhat a little bit of a destination, we feel, right? So silver members in our program get lounge access when they transit in Abu Dhabi, as do the gold, platinum, and emeralds. And so we're kind of also incentivizing that kind of rest stop on the way through can be very enjoyable and relaxing, and potentially something that people would choose to fly us as opposed to others. So, we think we're pretty confident that with the terminal, with the proposition, with the ability of the stopover, that there's definitely a market there, and we're seeing the market there actually, who wants to have that stopover. The other piece that I'd reference, if they're going, into the United States with the US CBP here in Abu Dhabi, so the ability to pass through customs in Abu Dhabi, it is an absolutely first-class facility as well, right? So you arrive into the US like you're arriving on a domestic flight. I've taken that flight to JFK or to other markets in the US, and it's quite a strange experience getting off the aircraft in a domestic terminal after flying 14 hours. It was quite surreal actually, but really removes a lot of that stress of having to stop and go through immigration and so forth when you arrive. It's a lot seamless here. So to me, that's a really, really strong selling point. Not a loyalty specific one, but our tiered members and our members seem to really like it.
I want to ask you this next question as a fellow traveler, not really
Yeah.
a head of a global loyalty program. Okay, we were just talking
Got-
about.
Take my hat off. I've got it. I'm a traveler.
We were just talking about the good old days, right? Sometime back when I told you one of my first redemptions on Etihad via jet privilege. Of course, loyalty programs and most loyalty programs are now dynamically priced. I've come a long way since then. How do you respond to the criticism, let's say, especially on forums like Flyer Talk? I don't know if you frequent Flyer Talk much or not, but that loyalty programs are becoming more like cashback schemes, and they are losing that aspirational dream of a fixed price J or a first class seat. What do you say to that?
The conversations that you're talking about that are happening on the online forums are happening as well here in the business, right? So we have these discussions. The benefit of what we've done in the last 3 years around our structure has meant that the program reports into our chief revenue and commercial officer, and so the discussions around seats and availability and pricing and so forth are happening with him and with our revenue management colleagues, and so it's quite a nice, robust conversation. So. That has been a lot of fun, and I say that with a loyalty head hat on, but also as a member. The benefit that we have, and we strongly believe this is the right approach, is we've kind of got a hybrid model. So we have the ability for members to see the aspirational fixed price redemption. It's there. It's the traditional way of buying a cheap seat in the premium cabins based on a number that is kind of fixed. Of course, that's inventory managed and it's demand led, but it's there. We also have the ability for members to buy the last seat available on the plane. So, there is opportunities there to say, if you have miles in your account and you need us to, and you want to take a flight, then we will always have a seat for you. And that's the dynamic pricing structure that you talked about, right? So we've kind of said, we want to keep the floor price, the fixed price. If members, we want to make sure they have the aspirational redemption. But we also see members who have a willingness to pay and need to take a flight and want to apply premium or economy or first or whatever it may be, and want to book that last seat, then that's also available to them. So we think we've kind of got the perfect mix, and we've navigated that with our revenue management colleagues to make sure that we are making sure the member gets access and availability and reward for their loyalty to us. But likewise, we aren't kind of dilutionary or displacing revenue that potentially we as a group need to make sure we retain. So we think a reasonably good model, but a model that we are continuing to review. As I said, in 2024, when we made the changes to the program in June, we actually went into market and reduced our prices in premium cabins across certain zones. And so that was also our tip of the hat to our loyal members to say, you've accrued all these miles. We're not going to go and increase the prices on those. We're going to, make that more attainable. If you're loyal to us, then we're going to bring that back to you. And we continue to kind of evolve and reflect on whether we need to do more or less in that space. But that's our view.
I can understand it must be a push and pull factor with your revenue colleagues. And we'll talk about that a little later on. Couple of months back, Qatar had a great sign-up bonus with IndusInd card in India. They were offering, I think, 40,000 QR miles for all new members of the card. Do you think a big sign-up bonus helps? That is my first part of the question. And my second part of the question is, does the lack of a global alliance, Etihad not being part of a global alliance, does that limit your ability to compete for a slightly more frequent flyer? Is that something you have seen?
So let me answer the first question, then we'll go into the second one. Of course, the lucrativeness of the welcome bonus is a fantastic headline, and we will and we have and we will continue to, I suppose, as I said, look to do something similar. The tack that we've taken on the current proposition is we've kind of like bolstered the CVP on the credit card with a series of other benefits that we think are quite strong. So, of course, that there is a tactical element around getting eyeballs and excitement. We've seen that appetite on our card already as part of our launch, but we've gone and added in things like additional bonus for spend thresholds or the tier, as you talked about, I think already. We've also added, foreign exchange fee kind of elements into the card that make it a bit more of a rounded proposition. That's not to say that we will go and throw, welcome bonus offers into the market. We will definitely do that. We are doing that as we speak. In fact, as part of the launch. But I think we've taken more of a rounded approach in that sense, and we think the CVP is certainly competitive, if not one of the best cards in the market. On the alliance side, we're actually really fortunate because we have the largest non-alliance airline portfolio in the world. So basically, we've got 26 airline partners that are part of our ecosystem, and we have the ability to go and plug and play and build bilateral agreements with those guys, irrespective of alliance. So we have the autonomy to kind of go and onboard new partners as we wish. We will onboard some new partners in the next 2 or 3 weeks. That'll be really exciting. And they're agnostic of whether we're a part of an alliance or not, right? So for the frequent flyer or the flyer that wants to see that sort of depth because of an alliance, we have that at their doorstep. As I touched on before, our airline partner network out of India has partners that are going to take you east and west beyond Etihad. And so I think that only bolsters the proposition that we've got there and actually means that we can grow a lot faster than those if we sat in an alliance. You will also see that we're aware that there's some of the benefit structures that you get from an alliance perspective are potentially something that we are actively working on because we want to make sure there's a little bit of like neutrality in terms of engaging with us in our partner network. But with Etihad out of 11 destinations in India and the frequency, we're kind of covered at the moment, but we want to we'll continue to invest in that space to kind of give that frequent flyer a proposition that is what they deserve.
Mark, Air India and Indigo are aggressively expanding their long haul capabilities and loyalty propositions. As the home players get stronger, does Etihad Guest have to become more aggressive in its tier matching or status matching strategies to keep um, Indian frequent flyers, especially from switching back to Indian carriers?
Yeah, I mean, status match is something that we've done publicly, and we also do as part of our more one-to-one type engagements. So it's certainly something that we use as an opportunity to engage with a customer or a member that we want to be part of the program and engaging with us. I think that will continue. We will continue to use that kind of offering as an opportunity for us to engage with bases that we feel are appropriate for us as a program, and we want to get them into our flying base. Whether or not that is specific to certain carriers or not, it's great to see other programs kind of innovating and growing and kind of trying new things. I'm a big believer in competition only drives value back to the member, right? So if people are doing new things and kind of reinventing, then the member is only going to win in that sense across our program. So we're not concerned about that. We think our proposition is fantastic as it is, and it will continue to evolve and be agile in that space. The status program is just another way of us engaging in new customers that we want to get on board. So, the long-winded answer is yes, I think status match is an important tool. We are using it both publicly and privately, and we will continue to do so.
I had Mark Ross Smith on the show some time back, and I'm
Yeah,
sure
yeah.
he would have been he'll be very happy to hear that response from you, Mark. Do you see there is any merit in sort of customizing your loyalty program to different parts of the country? Let's say the behavior of the consumer in southern India is completely different in so many ways in the way they go about their lives as compared to a North Indian customer, to an East Indian customer, to a West Indian customer, right? Do you think there is any merit in somehow customizing your loyalty program or the benefits that you offer to these people as well? And is this something that you have tried in some other parts of the world?
So I think the answer is yes. Well, I know the answer is yes. I think it's important that we are building a proposition that allows us to personalize it based on region or based on their engagement model or what the member needs. And I think, at a more macro level, we went and made that change to the program in 24 because we wanted to give choice back to the member on how they wanted to travel and transact with Etihad. And so I think that choice element is proven to be has proven to be quite successful for us. And therefore, the next layer, which is always as part of our plan, is to how we can kind of almost tailor some of our partner ecosystem to be a little bit more relevant for some of those regions as well, and potentially allow people to choose how they engage. The benefit of our expansion means that I think, as I touched on before, it gives us a little bit of that critical mass already. And so we can start to see how members want to transact and engage with the program. And then we can use that kind of information to further tailor the approach into those markets. So the answer is certainly yes. We've started to do that at a tier level and a proposition level for our tiered members. The portfolio of partners we've got allows us to kind of start to tailor, and they also support us in that narrative. And I think there's just an evolution that'll come as we continue to grow and evolve in India and in other markets. I think the proposition on credit card products having variant tiers within that product means that we're starting to tailor based on different audiences. Again, that is the beginning potentially of how we can be more regional focused based on the needs of our member in those areas. So I definitely see that in the future.
All right. As Indians, we are hoarders of many things. And one of those things sometimes gets to be points. Um, and of course, a lot of unredeemed miles is a liability on airlines' balance sheets, right? How do you nudge members to spend their miles other than a saver ticket? Is there something you guys have learned over time in terms of what works usually with flyers and what doesn't, or rather with your members and what doesn't work?
So I think that there's two things that we've learned and we're executing. Firstly, we know that there is, if you're joining a frequent flyer program, you're joining an airline loyalty program, you have the aspiration or the inspiration to travel, right? We know there's propensity to travel. So we do a lot of work. Actually, I literally approved a couple of notes that are going out tomorrow to certain bases, one of them being India, in fact, that really highlights some of the network and the growth that we've got and the ability for miles to be used, and also how the miles can be used to support offsetting some of that cost, right? Because we know the variant levels or the spectrum of miles balances that our members have. And so one member will be able to, have the miles balance that covers everything. The next member will just want to offset some of their cost, right? So we have the ability for them to choose and slider and flex as they wish. So just kind of surfacing that opportunity for them to redeem is certainly a tried and tested method, right? It's not world conquering, but it certainly works. And we see a really nice spike every time we surface those options and that network, because at an airline that's growing at our rate with 30 new destinations, we certainly know that there is a need for us to continue to repeat that we've got these great new markets coming on board: Palma, Krakow, Charlotte, across the nation, Kabul, Damascus, all these great places coming across the world that potentially may not be front of mind for others, but with the miles being in the balance, all of a sudden become quite an appealing location if they know they can get there. So that's one part. The second part is with the likes of Flipkart, as you touched on. We know that the redemption is a really important trigger for them to continue to engage with us. So by having these relationships that, to your point, were somewhat taboo a couple of years ago, it kind of teases the fact that there is no real need for those miles to kind of be sitting in your account for a long duration. You don't need to hoard them. You can get value from them straight away. And that was actually a really, really clear objective for us on the growth narrative, that we don't want miles to break. We don't want that to happen, right? And so engagement is a critical objective for us. And so giving more reasons for people to transact and redeem them is part of the ethos. And so Flipkart or Supercoin is a really nice example of that. Ultimately, if we can get them to see reward and value in the program, then there is more likelihood that they will continue to accrue them, and hopefully that redemption becomes, so that kind of life cycle of that aspirational, premium transaction is certainly within reach a lot quicker than before because of that frequency. And the communications that we do, there is a long list of them. I'm sure you've talked to multiple people about the same thing. We're not immune to that. We try and communicate as much as the member requires for them to see the value up front across multiple different verticals. So yeah, hoarding might be a thing from an Indian consumer perspective, but we certainly see these girls and guys loving to transact across those flights, and the ability for people to offset some of the cost or the whole amount makes it a lot more achievable.
In my research for our chat today, I read this very interesting piece, which basically had this one line, and it really struck me, which was, "The burn drives the earn."
Yep,
Yeah.
100%. Yep. I think if we take our loyalty hat off again for a second and put ourselves as a member, you want the redemption, right? You want the value. You want to feel the value of why you're engaging with the program, and we fully are aware of that. And that's why, again, we've been a lot more open than we have in the past about surfacing opportunities for miles to be used. And we know that, again, testing it here in the UAE with all these great partners meant that the discussion with the Supercoin and Flipkart guys was quite simple, because we know that works. And I think the flexibility of using 1 mile or as many miles as you want in our redemption flow means that we're also saying, we want to make sure that's a redemption or a value that's coming to you sooner, because you're exactly right. The burn drives the earn. We all want to see the value. We need to see the value to continue to transact. And so that's why, we are continuing to find ways for members. Something that a lot of people don't recognize either or realize, the program has the ability to convert the miles into cash. We can give you a reward Visa card that you can use to transact wherever you want. Wherever Visa is accepted, you can use your miles to spend them. I think, again, that is something that is
poor value, right? I mean, from a points and miles collector point of view, I mean, I would much rather buy the ticket, right?
Of course, and for sure that is, again, we all know that the redemption on the airline is certainly the best value you can get, particularly in, as we all want to fly in the premium cabins. But the point was more to say, like, we've gone to the depth to basically say you can transfer in other currencies, you can buy technology on e-commerce platforms, you can even convert it into cash, because we want you to use the mile. We don't want it just to sit there. We want, and, as again, to close it off, it's a tested methodology. People who redeem earn again or engage again and transact again. So we're doing the job of getting it front of mind.
How do you balance the commercial team's need for high yield cash seats on popular routes, let's say from Delhi or Mumbai to Abu Dhabi or to London Heathrow, with the loyalty heads need to provide saver seats availability for your most valuable members? Who wins that fight in the boardroom? How do you convince the revenue management team?
Pretty simple at a high level, because it's all about proving the value of the member who is getting access to the seat, right? The customer lifetime value, or the value, or our passage to customer value is something that we continue to surface across those conversations. So a member who is sitting in a premium tier, as an example, is certainly an easier conversation when we talk to the revenue management team and say we need to make sure we're allocating seats to these members because they have spent X with the airline, or are transacting across our ecosystem that is valuable to us. And I think when we made those changes in 2024, we really prioritized the fact that we are making, in order to get to the tier, we made a conscious effort that the members who are getting access to our platinum tier, our gold tier, or silver tier, or the emerald tier need to fly with Etihad, because they need to basically, they will be rewarded for that loyalty to us as Etihad. We are Etihad. Etihad Guest is Etihad. And so those conversations with revenue management, or the teams become a lot easier, because we can easily prove that these people are flying and buying seats off us. There's other, economics of the program that mean that, points transfer or buy currencies or whatever also are lucrative in the sense of the economics. And so that also supports some of the conversation. But our primary objective, and the conversation we have with the revenue guys, is about, these are loyal, frequent flyers with Etihad, and therefore surfacing the redemption and rewarding them for their loyalty is a really important part of that engagement model. And then, speaking kind of from a B2B perspective, the program took a conscious effort to really make sure we're investing in the economics in the back end to make that available to our members as well, right? So we didn't just kind of say reduce the price or make sure there's seats available. We took a really strong group view that there is an investment required to make sure that these members are getting what they deserve for their loyalty. So long-winded way of saying, there is a surfacing of customer value that means those conversations are a lot easier. And openly say there is times where it doesn't make sense, and we kind of the displacement or the dilution potentially of offering a seat makes it a bit more challenging. But ultimately, at the top of the tree or the top of the funnel, the group view always wins out. And so they've certainly been a lot easier in the last couple of years with the data that allows us to articulate that.
Loyalty, Mark, traditionally and historically has been built on scarcity, right? But then if you look at so many credit card partnerships and so many other partnerships that airlines and loyalty programs have, it's a lot easier to get to, let's say, a gold, a mid-tier status, let's say. It's the same case actually with hotels, not just with airlines. I just want to know, from your point of view, leading a global loyalty program, at what point the entire loyalty system really collapses under its own weight of having so many elite members, right? I remember I saw this poster the other day, that a property in US, a Marriott property in US, had this poster at the reception, and it said, welcome our loyalty members, Ambassador Elite 20, Platinum, some 100 number, gold, another 100 odd number. And I mean, like, it's crazy, right? When everybody's having a great status, then nobody's having a great status, really. How do you solve for this?
Yeah, I share the sentiment. I think there was a time where we probably made access to our tiers, and gold is a mid-level tier, but also very, comes with a great suite of benefits, right? And so there's ultimately a need to make sure there's exclusivity there. And one of the key changes, again, that we made in 24 was about making sure that members who gain access to those tiers have to fly to get access to them. Obviously, with our co-brands in India as well as here in the UAE, and there is a need there is the ability to fast track into that tier. So there is a spend. We're not just kind of gifting the card away with no kind of loyalty or transactions as a consequence. And then basically the following year there is a need for the member to go into our maintain cycle. So we think we've kind of found a happy median there. That means that we are giving value on the credit card or the payment card that includes the tier there, fast track to gain it. They do have to transact. It's not like you get it, upfront without any engagement. But in order to kind of retain and to force them to be loyal to our airline as well, there is a flying requirement in essentially the second year. So, I think we openly talk about the fact that we made a conscious effort during the COVID kind of era where we made the non-air kind of transactions to be quite lucrative and valuable in terms of gaining tiers. As we came out of COVID, there was a need for us to refine that, which we did. And now we're seeing, we're seeing some really nice numbers come through in terms of those that are sitting in the tier who are loyal to us, transacting, flying, but to an amount and to an extent that means that we are still retain that exclusivity. We talk a lot about making sure that we want members who are in the tiers to be proud of being part of those tiers, and also that ultimately people who are not are somewhat envious. To your point, if everybody's a gold is not exclusive, right? Everybody's a platinum, it's not exclusive. So we are conscious of that, and we made a conscious effort to make sure that those that sit in there are those that are loyal to us, and we will continue to invest in them, kind of getting more benefits and access to certain things as a consequence of their loyalty. We also introduced an Emerald tier, which has a spending requirement that that is also allowing it to be quite an exclusive niche group, and that also meant that we're sort of tailoring some of the approaches based on certain segments, and those guys receive a very bespoke kind of proposition that is tailored to them. So we're also enriching that exclusivity by having an additional tier above the platinum. That means that there is additional layers and levels for people to aspire to get to.
The new diamond tier requires a staggering $150,000 of spend in a year. That is clearly a move towards value over volume. What does the data tell you about this specific cohort? Are they corporate contract travelers, or is there a growing segment of unmanaged HNIs in markets like India that you are specifically targeting?
So the majority of them are quite senior corporate travel. So there isn't a lot of kind of unmanaged, if you want to call it, high net worth individuals. They're spending quite a lot of money with us, so they're in an affluent group, right? But they're more kind of a corporate vein. So that's the short-winded answer. They basically travel a lot for work. Usually, the depth of the network they're flying to is quite interesting. It's not centralized to specific locations. There's quite a nice variety of people going to certain places. But certainly, the good news about those members is, of course, they're flying a lot for work, and it's more of a corporate traffic. But there's also that leisure kind of transaction that's coming as a consequence of them flying quite frequently with us as well when they want to do the VFR activity. So we're kind of getting that sphere of value as the consequence of the tier, where the proposition we put into market allows them to take advantage of that as well.
I think aviation gets far more of a bad rep for sustainability issues than it deserves. The industry as a whole, in my opinion. Now you have something called the Extraordinary Challenge. You're encouraging members to fly to 15 new destinations to win 5 million miles. How does a program designed to maximize miles flown reconcile with Etihad's publicized Greenliner sustainability goals and the industry's push towards net zero? Is that, weird?
No, I don't think so. I think we all have an objective as airlines and as programs to kind of support the sustainability narrative, and we do that through various forms. We still have the ability to use your miles to offset. We have the ability for members to use their miles to donate, and so it's not like we are completely immune, or not immune, but it's not like we're not doing anything to support those objectives. The Extraordinary Challenge was an interesting one, and I think in actually every conversation I've had about it, it's somewhat come up as a question. Our view was somewhat to kind of flip it a little bit and to say, loyalty, our belief, my belief on loyalty is that we're shifting into, and it's proven and written actually, that members are more attached to experiences and emotional loyalty than transactional. We are shifting and focusing on that element, right? And so the extraordinary challenge was actually a really nice way to showcase the growth of the airline and these great new destinations that we were flying through last year, but also incentivizing our members going out and experiences things potentially they may not have thought about before. And some of the discussions we've had with some of the members who were involved in it, amplified that. People going to destinations, bike running between different locations, going on trains that they may not have done. And so whilst maybe there's been conversations from a sustainability angle, the great stories about getting our members out and seeing the world. And I think that is really, really a lovely piece of reflection from these members in terms of what we kind of gave them the opportunity to do, and we incentivized it through the miles and through milestones and so forth. But we will continue to focus and deliver opportunities for members to use their miles to donate and to offset if they choose to. But the Extraordinary Challenge was a really nice entry point into us kind of showcasing the world a little bit more to our members and giving them potentially a reason to go and explore places they wouldn't have gone to before. And the extraordinary nature of it meant that some of those destinations, I'm confident, were not on anybody's bucket lists at one point or another. And so, but they all seem to, or a large portion of them all seem to go and see them. And I think, reaping the benefits of that as part of the experience they had.
Wanderlust 1, sustainability 0. All right. That's just to be very clear. That is my takeaway from that. Your fundamental KPI is, of course, to increase seat occupancy and frequency of travel. But then, would Etihad ever consider rewarding a member for not flying?
I think it's probably that's a little bit too transactional in its approach. I mean, obviously the program is there to drive engagement and get people on flights, and as I just touched on, obviously to travel our network and experience the world with Etihad. So, I think we've taken more of a holistic approach in terms of sustainability. We are giving options for members to use their miles. We obviously incentivize people to transact across a non-air ecosystem as well, and they can spend and donate and so forth. So I don't think, honest approach, I'm not sure if we would ever incentivize someone for not flying, but we would certainly allow them to utilize their currency in the program to offset their flying if they choose to. So, they're meeting their kind of own personal objectives. But we as a business obviously have our roadmap on sustainability, and it's more of a holistic approach rather than kind of pockets of opportunity to incentivize those to not fly. It feels a little bit counterproductive for a airline loyalty program to incentivize someone to not experience our airline and our network.
Yeah, I would personally choose flying. But that's me. That's me. Okay, so if you had to choose between a member who flies 50 times a year, okay, somebody like me who's flying on cheap saver tickets, versus a member who never flies, right? But let's say is spending 20 lakhs on your Bob Etihad card. Who's more loyal to the future of Etihad, according to you, Mark?
We believe both of them are important, but I know I can't do that answer because that's a fence-sitter one, and I know you're after a specific one. Look, I think the answer is the one that's flying on Etihad, because our ultimate aspiration is for those that are engaging in our credit card product or our other ecosystem in the market is about trying to get them on board. And I honestly believe, and I know the previous two questions, amplify that a little bit. I believe is that the proposition in the program is here to get people to experience Etihad and to fly the world. And we know that members join airline loyalty programs to get access to the network and the world that we offer with our partners or with Etihad. And so the value of the member who's flying on Etihad is obviously our primary objective. Of course, those that are spending on their credit card is great and very important, and it drives partner objectives and ours as well. And so, tongue in cheek, they're equally important in some form. But I want to get our members on board. I want to see them traveling the world. I want to see them get the value of the currency by traveling around. And so it would be the former.
Let's say 5 years from now, how do you see Etihad Guest changing? Is it more like a fintech platform, which also has airplane seats in its inventory, or what is it? What's your vision for Etihad Guest 5 years from now?
It's a great question, and I think it probably continues to shift around a little bit based on the member needs that we're experiencing as the airline, continues to grow at the pace that we've got. Um, I think I love the fintech analogy only because it, to me, reflects a very robust, agile kind of methodology and thinking of ways to continue to innovate and to build propositions that are relevant for the time. And so, fintech with a few thousand airline seats, hopefully more airline seats than a few thousand, is certainly a nice way of describing us. I think as I touched on before, my view on the future from a loyalty perspective is we will continue to evolve into more experiential loyalty structures rather than the transactional ones, and really focusing on experience and how we can amplify through the various touch points. So obviously fintech is somewhat kind of the method of engagement, but I firmly believe that as programs, we need to continue to ensure there's a human element in how we engage with our base and treat them and give them experiences. So we will continue to invest in how we can personalize the experience for our bases, so that some of those the touch points and the interactions we have are based on a sample size of one. So that's kind of a bit of a fluffier response, but certainly we will be focusing on the service and the experience that we can deliver. As we grow as well, and I don't have a crystal ball in terms of how our kind of mobile apps and so forth are going to interact with us, but we're certainly seeing members utilize the mobile app more than desktop and kind of other ways of interacting. And so I think a lot of the stuff that will be surfacing will be in the palm of your hand with the phone. And so whether that's the way that we engage or the way that we interact on flying experiences or disruptions or propositions or whatever else will certainly be a little bit more app related. But to me, that's not a 5-year plan. That's probably a 12-month, 18-month plan, where we're seeing that shift, and we're already seeing members do that shift. So the vision of the program is we will continue to deliver propositions in markets to members where we want to drive relevance, like we've done in India. That will happen in other markets as well, and we'll continue to refine those experiences and propositions. We will invest in the personalization of the journey, and so that we can give tailored propositions to members when they transact. And I think on the digital ecosystem, it's all going to be in the palm of your hand. I would be, if I was a betting man, I think the way that we currently surface redemptions using currency is probably going to evolve as well. We've already seen a shift from the fixed inventory to the dynamic inventory. I don't think that's the end of the conversation. I think ways of tailoring availability and so forth will continue to evolve, so that we're giving access to the right member at the right time. That is part of our potential plans as well. So without being buzzwordy, personalization is going to be a real focus point for everybody, and not to the extent of just kind of sending the right email, but really how we make the member feel as part of their experience with us, and that's what we're going to focus on.
I thought you would have said we'll make residence redemption much cheaper.
That's too. I mean, that's too. I would love to get on board that residences too as well, mate. So it's I hope so.
Mark, my last question, and I have waited till the end to ask you about AI. we are seeing the rise of agentic AI, autonomous bots that will soon book travel. That's what I've been reading for people by optimizing for variables that most of us can't control. If a member's AI agent decides that a competitor's dynamic saver fare is 4% better value than an Etihad redemption, your brand relationship is bypassed entirely, right? How do you build a loyalty program that appeals to an algorithm rather than just a human emotion? I mean, again, to be clear, this is not something I've experienced, but something I've read about.
I mean, I think it's a great question, and I think AI, a day doesn't go by here at Etihad where AI isn't discussed in probably every meeting, and how we are going to utilize it to be the competitor in that example of having a fare that's 4 to 7 to 8% lower, or trying to combat those that are doing that. Obviously we can't as a program solely rely on the human emotion as you referenced. So that's we know that our members are certainly attuned to the fact that there is value to be taken as part of the miles currency. I think there is still a loyalty element to the currency there. So whilst maybe there's a 4% or 5% or 7%, members are going to see the value. But I think if we can drive that emotional connection with them, then there is still a willingness to potentially pay a little bit more to get access to the redemption. So if the competitor is putting a cheaper fare in market, but we are making sure that the experience and the proposition that we're putting there is relevant and specific to them, the member themselves, I think there is still a willingness to pay a little bit more to get access to that. So maybe the AI will be there in the background, and of course it's already happening. I'm sure it's not like it's going to happen in the future. I think it's happening today. But there is a loyalty there, and that's our job, right, as the program, to keep people stickiness and to, openly choose to fly with us at times potentially when there is other things that are cheaper or faster or whatever it may be. So we will equally be challenging and tracking and monitoring to make sure that we continue to give the value back to the member, and we'll be at the forefront of what everybody else is doing, whether that's program specific or as an airline. There is already work going on. But I do believe that there is ways that AI can't combat in terms of how we continue to engage and make the member feel like they are part of our Etihad ecosystem and our family. So we'll continue to upgauge that and make sure that choice of a discounted fare potentially versus what we can offer makes us the value. The value is beyond the currency, the discount, let's call it. That's my current view. AI, it's amazing how, as I said, we talk about it quite a lot, and how it's starting to really evolve our ways of working as a business. And I think there is so much advancements happening in the back end of how we, work as teams, how we do different changes across our different platforms, how they interact with each other, how we're going to use that information to hopefully tailor those experiences anyway, and kind of use the machine learning kind of adaptability to give us access to real-time decision engineering and so forth. That means that I think the AI that you reference is probably a small portion of the other side of the coin of where we can use it to our advantage to the value creation to beyond the discount.
Well, best wishes to you, Mark, and your team. Thank you so much for chatting with me. I loved our chat. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure on my side as well. And as I said, I'd love to get you out onto an Etihad flight and into Abu Dhabi very soon. So hopefully we can meet.
Well, while I get ready for my Etihad flight, I hope it made all of us think about airline loyalty in a different way. What I find fascinating about talking to people like Mark is the reminder that underneath all of it, there's a very human bet being placed. The airline betting that if it treats you well enough, you'll come back. And us as passengers betting the same in reverse. This coming Sunday, it is the turn of the Indian AvGeek episode number 24. And we will have Ranganathan Somanathan, the Global Chief Strategy Officer for Billups. Feel free to follow me on social. You will find me everywhere, including Blue Sky, as @Vishal1Mehra. Always happy to have your feedback. With that, keep your tray tables up, your seatbelts fastened. I wish you well, and happy flying, my friends.